Cool.
Right, if we're going to talk about the talent, Monty, here's my question. Can you put the image on screen? This image from this tweet here, which is just a picture of all the talent. Maybe because if you show it there, people will keep it in mind as we're talking about it. Otherwise, I think they'll forget who it is. And isn't mentioned. You should be able to put it in an OBS, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I will. Just give it. It'll have to screenshot.
Yeah,
just give me a moment, please. And
while he's doing that, I'll just read out the list while he does that. So basically, the list of people for the LEC winter split, remember, just the first split, is Broxer, Dagda, Dracos, Eragon, who's obviously a newer person, Finn, the former rogue player, Jiniro, a newer person, Guldborg, Hysterics, obviously from the LPL, Jamada, who did LCS, Law's obviously there, Medic is there again, Shocks is there, Treats is there, obviously former player, but they're working out. Troubling Catchy's on the whole split now, which is good news. Trimby's going to be there, who obviously didn't get picked up by a team and had the whole shenanigans with Fnatic, and then Vedius obviously still remains, so it's actually, if you look, like, first things first, while I'm still putting this up, is a lot of actual former players here, you notice. Like, they've got, like, what, 3 or 4 at least? They've got Broxer, Finn.
Yeah, Brox has been on for a while, though, and Finn has also done appearances in the past.
Trimby, there's 4.
Treats has also done appearances in the past, yeah. So, I mean, they've got a good number of people who have done stuff before. Here, I'll put it on the screen now. Give me just
and obviously, by the way, it goes without saying, just before we get into who is and who isn't there, people who themselves chose not to be there, we can't flame Riot for not being on the broadcast. So first things first, remember, Kaderril did say he's not doing the LEC anymore. So that's why Kaderril isn't there. People don't know. Like, that's not some sort of, like, scandal or anything like that. He just chose not to do LEC anymore. Some of the other names we're going to get into, though, I think there are some quite conspicuous ones. And also, there are also some additions where it's like, who the fuck's that guy? There's a few like that for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to know some of the people who came up from the ERLs, for example. But I think, obviously, you know, Kaderril not doing this is not surprising. That guy had like 150,000 concurrent viewers for co-streaming at Worlds. He's clearly in an exceptionally strong negotiating position with Riot. So if he doesn't want to cast,
by the way, you know, a fan made a point, and I realized this just shows how whenever you blindly support one person, you will just make ridiculous assumptions that aren't right. Like, you know, everyone got really mad, Monty, where when the final of Worlds was happening, Kaderril got kicked out of the T1 offices. He couldn't do the streamer from there. But someone made a point, and it's so right, which is, remember, Kaderril's brand was that he wanted the Shy and Weibo to win.
Yeah.
A fan made this point, and when they said it, I was like, dude, you're completely right. They said, imagine T1 just allowing you in their offices, if Weibo had won, to go mental celebrating Weibo winning over T1 with all the employees. That would, when they say it that way, I realize, wait, that's actually totally reasonable. You have to ask the person.
It's totally reasonable.
Yeah, this is totally reasonable, isn't it? Like, there's nothing bad about that at all. That's actually a fair play, T1. You get that. You win that one. You win that one.
Although,
imagine him. He would be doing it casting style, like a little rat running around. The Shy. So, some guys, like, his whole life was working for T1. Like, that would actually be mad PM, wouldn't it? I know.
So
that would be so insane.
So there are ways to. This is just an aside. I'm going to be streaming a lot of Bangers Only when the new season starts. So I'm going to be streaming a lot this year. And let's just say I've been thinking about production quality on my stream, and there are ways that you can use via a Wi-Fi network your phone as a camera. So if he had his phone hooked up to the Wi-Fi network, I'm just saying there would have been a way for him to use his OBS to change the stream to his phone camera and literally run around all of their offices laughing at people and like shouting about Weibo winning in their offices.
That would be amazing. That would actually be amazing, wouldn't it?
So there are some ways that you could do some pretty wacky shit. So I understand, like, you know, there could have been some stunts. Let's just put it. Let's put it this way: had it been Monty in that situation, I 1,000% would have done that. So I don't blame them. Right. You know, I think that was probably a good call.
By the way, I feel like what we should do is, before we get into who is on the list, the obvious thing is who is conspicuous, who isn't on there. So the obvious name, by the way, Monty, I'm a low-key, like, sort of mildly bummed out that this person wasn't the whole story. As soon as this talent list was announced, I thought every comment below it and on Reddit would be, where's Quickshot? You know, if people don't know, the LEC is Quickshot. Like, he has been the guy for, like, what, 8 years or something, maybe 10 years. I don't know, like, he was there almost the whole time, wasn't he?
The whole time. Yeah.
And if you think about it, right, at least I think it was only maybe halfway into that, maybe even less, that he actually took over. He's sort of been the guy guiding the broadcast and has made decisions on who gets to work the broadcast. Why aren't people asking, where is this guy? Because here's the problem. I don't like to do this personally. I don't like to do I have a secret, but I can't tell you. I hate that. I actually do. Despite spoiler, I do think that Slasher was full of shit by going, I know why Doc didn't sign. And then we never ever get to know. Like, no, of course, we just get blue forever on that.
It turned out he was also just wrong. Doc wasn't. What was it? It was like, Dr. Disrespect is done, and not just on Twitch. Meanwhile, just been streaming on YouTube for literally years now. No scandal.
But yeah, basically, the point is, basically, there is actually a reason that isn't just like, oh, Quickshot chose to just chill out and take a split off or whatever. That's not the reason why. As far as I've heard, basically, it's like he's been removed from this broadcast. So we can't go into why that is at the moment. Maybe in a future episode when it's less edgy, we'll be able to tell you. But that's a big news right there, dude. Like I said, especially because to me, one thing I actually always appreciated about Quickshot, here's what's funny, Monty. I used to low-key be a little bit of a Quickshot hater when he was just the caster, basically. Because as a caster, some of his gimmicks aren't my style. Like, I'll give you a point here, right, Monty? I don't know the name of every fucking ultimate in the game. I'd rather you say he did his ult or pressed R. If you keep saying the ultimate, I don't always know that. So if people don't know, Quickshot's gimmick was he knew every ability, right? Sometimes I personally found that a bit annoying. So, okay. But once he became this, like, sort of big brother of the broadcast, I thought he's done a great job, mate. I think actually, if you look what he's stayed under his time, he's been mega. And I actually think in that role, as sort of like on-camera presence and being like a bigger brother, I think he does a great job of that. He's brought so many talent through, integrated them into the show. You've seen anytime there's a problem or you're at the big... But anyway, when they had that event where we finally got to have a proper LAN again, where we had the Malmo finals in 2022, Monty, as soon as he came out when he was doing the crowd work, you just remember, like, there's levels to this fucking game. Like, you can't just have some guy from NERL come out for a massive stadium and get the crowd. You need people who have like skills to do that. That's like this talent, there's on camera and on mic skills that this guy has. So I think this should be a big deal. Like, where is he? I hope he's back for spring split. This is just winter at the moment. Better be back for spring.
Yeah. You know, I think probably some people out there, we're not going to go into it, but there was some social media like bullshit that happened, you know, at the World Championship, which I suspect is the reason that this is occurring. I also suspect that because in the early stages of Worlds, when everything was in Ireland, he was part of the broadcast. And then when things moved to Korea, he was no longer part of the broadcast. I assume that has something to do with it. It's a really shitty situation because it's not even anything that he posted. And I'm sure you guys can discuss this on your own. Like, I think it's completely ridiculous. So I don't really want to get into the weeds about what it is. It's just absurd. So it is just baffling. And it sucks, man, because I think he's a great caster. And I've known Quickshot for a decade, and he is honestly like such a lovely human being. There is never any ulterior motives with him. He's just a really nice guy. And it's hard for me, knowing him like I do, to see him just kind of excluded from this, because it's not really, it's not really.
I'll just say it, Monty. Where's the loyalty from Riot? Look at what this guy did for you all these years. What, you can't stand by him once? Over something relatively minor? Come on. Where's the loyalty?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's right in a nutshell, right? There never is any loyalty. This is why I find it baffling that people are loyal to them. Because I can't tell you the reasons why yet, right? But put it this way, I recently had another scenario like this where someone behind the scenes has been completely fucked by Riot, and you know where the punchline always goes, Monty. At the end, I suggest a few different ways we could either, like, behind the scenes get back at them or publicly, and you know what their conclusion was? No, but I don't want to do or say anything on the off chance they'll still hire me. Like, this is the craziest thing about the Stockholm syndrome these people get into, is it's like, as long as there is, like, literally, like, it's like the fucking, what's it called, the Dumb and Dumber meme of, like, see you saying there's a chance. There only has to be a 1 in a million chance these people ever again benefit from Riot, and they'll just stay silent. It's so weird, isn't it? So many people are just afraid to ever come out against them, mate. It's wild. It's the standard MO at this point in the industry, just not to ever say anything, just on the off chance that you need to work with them again. Yep. So, I don't know, man. I think this is a really rough situation. I mean, there have been times when...
Right, obviously, the Dash one's the big example, right? Where basically, as far as we can tell, they just, like, quietly just kicked him out and then, like, didn't even, like, bring him back for the events that they implied they would.
Yep. I mean, they lied very publicly about how they were going to treat Dash,
Yep.
made content celebrating the fact that he was coming
Yep.
back, and then just never hired him really again. So pretty ridiculous.
That's right. And there's another guy who just was his broadcast for like the better part of a decade. Notice the pattern here is they're not even loyal to their main guys, for fuck's sake. I get it when they sort of fuck over a low-key contractor, maybe even somebody who does other games, but these are your guys. Like, these guys have gone to the hilt for you for years. They carried your broadcast.
Yeah.
They've been the face of your broadcast. Like, you gotta have loyalty to someone, surely.
Yeah, and at this point in time with the turnover, I mean, we're looking at the talent right now. The only person who's been there as long as Quickshot is Shocks. That's it. Those are your two kind of like all-time pillars. And I don't think that either of them are bad at their jobs currently. They haven't fallen off. I find Quickshot delightful to listen to as a caster. And I think he had some really good synergy, particularly with Ender. Like, I loved the kind of like boomer zoomer sense of humor and dynamic that they really played up. I thought it was very effective because it worked very well at having somebody who's like a representative of the millennial audience and then somebody who's a representative of the Gen Z audience. And I thought it was a very fun rapport.
I mean, for the show, it had a logic as well, right, Monty? Because essentially what it was doing was, if you're the old school season 3 fan of League, that's your Quickshot. And in this scenario, if you're the guy who just came along when it was LEC from like 2018 onwards, you're entering this analogy and everyone could understand the dynamic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, also, Ender also isn't on the broadcast because obviously he just announced he retired to Valorant or whatever the fuck, didn't he?
Well, he already tried to do that one time.
True.
He basically was like, I'd rather live in Los Angeles and I want to do Valorant, so I'm just going to do VCT. And then suddenly he was like, nah, I'm just coming back to Europe to do LEC for a while again. I think it was probably because there wasn't a lot of work in Valorant at the time. And now that this, VCT Americas is more stable, he probably got the deal that he wanted. And I think he legitimate.
Right. I think it was something like that. They had to save costs at the LEC headquarters, so they had to remove his entire walk-in closet that he had there. So he was like, well, I can't work under these conditions, If I'm expected to just show up in a suit and tie and talk about the game, I'm out of this shit.
I did enjoy that about him, though. Like, it was funny.
It was a gimmick. It was his gimmick, sure.
I still like your joke about him using all of Frost Curran's old outfits.
A good one. Yes. That's a good one too.
Which, honestly, I'd bet a lot of money that at least one piece of clothing he wore was bought for Frost Curran at one point in time.
Remember, by the way, if people don't know, that's not even some sort of like a controversial joke. The joke is Frost Curran herself did dress in sort of an androgynous / male way, and he's doing it from the other side, and they were sort of meeting in the middle in a way. They were kind of wearing away, of course. Yeah. That was the vibe, obviously.
Yeah, so, Ender not being there is kind of a bummer as well. I think, he's a good analyst, but it really does seem like he wants to be in the States and his heart is more in Valorant these days. And the other person obviously missing is going to be Kaderril. And Kaderril never has to do League of Legends again if he doesn't want to. He's at a point where he can draw 10,000 concurrents as a variety streamer. I still think he'll do esports content and like co-streaming because it's huge for him and he gets bigger audiences. But on a long enough timeline, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Kaderril just kind of retires into variety streaming. Because
I also get the sense, I don't know about you, Monty, but there's a thing that a lot of people don't know about League of Legends specifically that's different from the other esports games. So I've told you this story before. In Counter-Strike, if you go to an ESL event, so the biggest events in Counter-Strike, famously, Monty, right, they always say the day before the broadcast that you have a rehearsal, right? And we always go there like 6 p.m. local time or whatever. And I can tell you, Monty, if I've attended off the top of my head, I don't know, 30 ESL events, there was an actual rehearsal one time out of 30. The other 29 times you went, had a little bit of sort of like conversation with the other talent, and then after like an hour they were like, you can just go, guys, we're not going to do it. Essentially the rehearsal ended up just being them setting the equipment up and they weren't ready to bring the talent on and test the mics, right? So the reason I bring this up, Monty, is that's a normal Counter-Strike event. Essentially at a Counter-Strike event, you turn up to the event and you just sort of do the day one, you're there. In leagues, like in League of Legends, like LEC, you don't even just do the broadcast days. You have like production meetings, you have to come in the office and discuss skates and fucking plan things out. Like, if people don't know, Kaderril already is doing insane hours on his stream. He's obviously doing the LEC. that stuff wears on you eventually. Like, eventually that gets annoying. You don't want to do like extra days like that. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, even though this wasn't the case for me personally, to some people, when they have done LEC finals, when they've done Worlds and they've done MSI, it sort of sits their appetite for doing it. Like, right, I've done it. I've done some World Championships. Cool. I am a bit weird. I would keep doing CS majors forever, mate. It's just my shit, 'cause I know it's going to be historical. But for some people, a few Worlds is enough. Maybe they don't want to do that forever in their career, you know. So I don't blame him. I can sort of see why he did it. Not my choice, but I don't blame him at all. Fair play.
Yeah, and as somebody like, you know, if you've kind of reached the end game of League of Legends casting, if you've like been on the world's final broadcast, you know, I've talked to a lot of casters. I've been there. Like I didn't do the actual casting, but I was on the desk, and it just kind of loses its luster. You know what I mean? Because you more or less feel like, well, what is there now? You know what I mean? Like this is the top of the mountain. That's it. It doesn't go any higher than this. And you are then faced with the prospect of basically being in an eternal battle for 1-year contracts with Riot Games, who underpays you and treats you like shit, and you know job security. So what exactly is keeping you around if you have an out, right? There is no loyalty. Even if you do a good job, they'll just dash you at any point in time. So yeah, I don't really see.
What's great about that is Dash actually does work as an actual like pod as well. Obviously, the name and you just dash them to oblivion, don't you? Just drop them completely on the rocks. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
So
this should be the new phrase. You've dashed them. There you go.
Yeah, you dashed them. That's so it. Like in this case, like you get mysteriously disappeared, like Quickshot has been. So I don't know, man. Like
one name for you, Monty. I'm actually surprised you didn't reference this. The obvious name I also think is conspicuous. Think of all the last years of the LEC. Think of the EU Masters and the NLC. Where the fuck is Nymera? Are we pretending this guy doesn't exist anymore? Like, as far as I know, by the way, I believe he's one of those people who lives in fucking Germany. I think he moved there.
He does. He lives in Berlin.
And if people don't know, like I just said, think about that. NLC, that's like a Riot broadcast, EU Masters, like this guy's come up through their system. By the way, as far as I know, never had a single scandal or anything controversial. In fact, I even believe, I don't really know him on a personal level, I just know him as a colleague. I even believe politically he's more sort of in the camp of all the shit that everyone's into in esports. Like, I don't know what's the dislike about the guy. Like, hasn't he just sort of done everything right? And he's not like the most beloved caster in the world, but he has his niche audience. I'd say he's shown his skill set, by the way, in multiple regions. Like, why are there people on this list I've never heard of? And by the way, players who've yet to even prove they're good on broadcast. But fucking Nymera can't be there. What's going on?
So it's possibly that he's working LPL, and a lot of the LPL announcements have been that people are getting cut from the broadcast. So I think they're really trying to run LPL with very, very few casters. And if that's the case, there might just be, remember that LPL runs 7 days a week. So, I mean, if they have, 4, 5, 6 casters for this, does he have time to do LEC? Would be a very reasonable question.
It would be a reasonable question, but I'll just say my guess would be they fucked him. But yeah, that's an interesting guess, certainly. Anything's possible, I guess, right? As Joe Rogan always defaults to on his show, he always goes, I guess anything's possible, even after they've just said like some mad shit about like Bigfoot or something, like, anything's possible, I guess, right?
Yeah, and also, Hysterics is on the LEC broadcast, probably not as a regular, but yeah, it is weird that Nymera was, I mean, it's not just that he was a guest on the LEC, but he kept getting picked up more and more and more and more and more by the LEC, and then suddenly he wasn't on the LEC at all. So I find it very strange.
Hasn't he done MSI and Worlds? I think he's done some matches at these tournaments, right? Like maybe Plains or something. Maybe. Has he ever done Worlds or anything?
I don't know. I don't recall off the top of my head. Possibly.
Maybe not. Could be wrong on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like I think Jamada already said that he's not doing LPL anymore, so it kind of makes sense that he would appear here on LEC. Dagda's obviously not on LPL at all anymore and is just doing entirely LEC. And then it's many of the people that we've seen before sprinkled in with some professional players. It's nice that they're giving, I don't know who Aragon is, for example. There are a couple people here that I don't know who they are. Aragon and Jiniro, I guess is how you say her name. I'm not familiar with, so we'll see how that goes.
I'm not familiar.
But yeah, I am a bit surprised that they wouldn't bring Nymera back for some of this.
Oh, right, you're right. Yeah, I said Jamada was LCS. It's LPL, sorry. I misspoke on that one.
Yeah, he was doing LPL.
It's just I believe he is like American or something though, right?
No, I think he's
Oh, no,
British.
he's actually British. What am I talking
he's
about?
British.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind that.
Yeah. So yeah. I think the announcement generally makes sense. It is a bummer because like I think missing Kaderril is going to be really hard because he was, in my opinion, like the best league caster of the last couple of years.
Oh man, I think they're in real trouble. Like if you look at that graphic that you put up, here's the obvious question I have. Right, which figure on this graphic, if they speak about like analysis and make a really strong point about the game, who has massive authority on this stream? It's almost no one, as far as I can tell, mate.
I mean,
like,
Vedius and Dagda.
I think Vedius isn't considered like a super expert by fans. I'd say they consider him more of just a talent. Dagda's maybe all right. Like if you look even at the players, like maybe if Trimby makes a point, people might get. You know what I mean? That's to me what Kaderril fulfilled in the LEC's position was. People did sort of almost worship this guy. He was considered like the ultimate like opinion or whatever. So I think the problem they're going to have for me is just like these are all competent people of the ones I know, but I do think it's missing like a big name, if you know what I mean. Like where's the really big name that I have to watch this broadcast? I've got to tune in to hear this guy. I don't think they've got it anymore, mate. These are just good talent. That's it.
Yeah, well, I think
as you said, the turnover is part of the problem. If these are people who'd all been there 8, 9 years, maybe then it would be like that. But it feels like every year this list changes, mate. In fact, the weird thing about EU is the joke is in League of Legends esports, it's actually LEC that's the melting pot, not the fucking United States of America. Like, why is LEC always the region that takes everyone in from everyone? You know this. Back in the day, there was even offers. Monty could have worked the EU LCS. Fucking Papa could have worked the EU LCS. Froskurin did eventually, but could also have. I think Atlas implied in my reflections he could have worked the EU LCS. It's the one region where everyone, and seemingly not only it could go, but they actually like, try to recruit the talent, right? So the reason I bring this up is, in light of the fact you can bring anyone who speaks English to the region in theory, like this is an all right list, but it's not that crazy to me. I kind of feel like the turnovers sapped my spirit for a bit of the fucking talent. Like I say, like that's why Quickshot not being there is a big deal to me. Quickshot and Kaderril were like two of my main reasons to watch the talent. Neither are going to be there for this winter split now.
Yeah. It doesn't feel great. There's also no indication, at least yet, that LEC is the region that's been holding out in terms of co-streaming. So we may not even get like Kaderril co-streams on the LEC. It might have to be like watch parties, which is what they've been doing because LEC doesn't, at least up until this point, has not allowed co-streaming, even though LCS cracked, allowed everybody to co-stream it the entire time, as opposed to just the super weeks in the playoffs like they did previously. LPL and LCK, you can co-stream the entire thing. It's just been LEC that has been completely blacked out in that way. Although I will say I would be surprised if they did not allow co-streaming this year. I would be surprised, especially Kaderril. It seems really crazy that they wouldn't allow him to co-stream. So I don't know. Whole thing is a little weird.
I will say though, since I have mentioned it 1 million times, I'm glad actually finally Trouble just gets to do a whole split. For some reason, she was just in like that perma status of only being allowed to do a week every now and then. Well, I guess technically we don't know yet, but yeah, I hope this means she just does the whole split though. Personally,
yeah, she's been good. Yeah, I don't think everybody's going to be doing every week on this list. There's too many people. So like I imagine they'll cycle people in and out.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.